What's going on YouTube? Kronos here and welcome back to another Soulworker video. So in today's video I just wanted to go ahead and go over my thoughts after playing Soulworker for the past week. Kind of let you guys know how I feel about the game itself, what I think about it, what I've learned, so on and so forth. But before we jump into that, guys, really quick, if you're new here, my name is Krono. I do content over here on YouTube daily. Would much appreciate if you guys toss to subscribe if you want to keep up with the content as it goes live. We mostly cover PS2 on this channel, but I'm going to try to branch out into more other anime-based MMOs or just other anime-based games in general, or games that I just like in the first place. So hopefully you guys will stick around. Anyway, let's go ahead and just jump right into this. So as you guys know, I've spent the last week roughly playing Soulworker, and about the time of this video, I have just completed unlocking the Desire Worker, as well as I think I'm about to hit level 68. So I'm close, like I'm basically at towards the end game itself. I just have to do the story, and of course my daily raids and things like that. I'm starting to reroll gear, understanding that concept and kind of how the game works. And I feel like this is a kind of a good point to go ahead and make this video itself. I want to give you guys my thoughts on what I feel about the game and you know, how it's basically been filling this gap that I'm waiting on NGS at the moment. That way I don't burn too hard out on PSO2. So first and foremost, let's talk about what Soulworker is. So Soulworker is a third-person action-based MMO, more or less. It's an anime game. Super fun. It is a Korean MMO, so of course, you know, that much we have to make sure we are very upfront about. Anyone who's played Korean MMOs in the past knows well about the style of game that they tend to be. But there's a lot of good news actually. So this game has come out a few times. There have been tons of private servers people have released. Of course, you guys know on the channel we don't support private servers, so we don't play any of those. There have been tons, or there's been a release from Gameforge, which we did play the Gameforge version of the game itself. Not exactly the best. Its pay model was pretty poor, at least on launch. I heard it changed, but I really didn't want to get into it after it changed. I was already, you know, my time had passed with the game. I'd moved on to other stuff, so I figured I'd give it a shot when it's, you know, now with its original publishers, so I'm told. So the game itself is on Steam. It is free to download. In case you were looking to find the game, just pop over to Steam. Make sure you're looking for Soulworker, not Soulworker - Anime Action, whatever that's called. Just Soulworker by itself. It should be dated that it came out in May. I believe it came out May 12th. So it's been out for a little over half a month now. It's I know some people have been grinding pretty hardcore on it, and it's been pretty fun. So the good news is how I feel about the game itself. It's a solid game, but there are some caveats and some things I want to talk about overall with the game itself. So this is one of those games, much like PSO2, I feel like, where its combat heavily carries the game. Now granted, it's less with PSO2, but in Soulworker, for me at least, the combat is a big selling point for me playing this game originally. Back when I saw it beforehand, and you know, of course, when I've been playing this week recently. Characters are pretty cool, but they are gender locked, meaning that you have a playstyle you want to play, you're going to be playing that character specifically. There is a bit of customization, but it's not extensive. Most of the extra customization does come in the form of their cap shop, or their speaking is hard. Their cash shop, much like other free-to-play games. There are outfits and things of that sort, but we're going to jump into that in just a moment. I wanted to talk more about just the beginning experience. So as far as the game goes, just playing through the story itself, it does have a pretty awesome story. Actually, I would love to have watched or read more of it, but unfortunately, there are just so many quests where they have you reading so much dialogue. My patience just wore way too thin. While the story is good, I'm going to look for something that's a bit more, you know, concise and a synopsis of what actually is going on, because the bits and pieces I understood as I was going along were pretty dope. It's a bit of a darker story, but I enjoyed it all the same. As far as the game itself goes, the leveling experience was pretty dope as well. They provide you with gear every 5 levels, which is a great thing for me. One of the things I hated about leveling in most games is having to fumble around with gear as you're going through the leveling experience. And then here over and over again, don't spend anything on your gear. You know, it's not going to matter. You're going to replace it over and so on and so forth. Well, this just completely eliminates that entire process, which I think is a fantastic idea. It lets you go ahead and stack up on materials. Some of them you may not really need, but you're not wasting resources early on, and you can save those for later on down the line. It does create a bit of a problem though, because you really don't understand how to manage those resources because you never had to during the leveling process. So you can get a little overwhelmed when you hit certain breakpoints where you do have to start managing a few resources and you do have to start upgrading some gear. That's a bit of a learning curve, but I still think it is the better of the two evils in my opinion. As far as the game goes, I'm sure some of you guys have probably wondered, but you can pay for stuff. Is the game pay to win? So personally, my definition of pay to win is being able to pay for an advantage that there is no way another player can get a hold of. Now, that being said, there are pay for advantages, not advantages other players can't get a hold of, but I mean, I guess kind of, it depends on how you define it. So I'm going to have it broken down into two sections really. If you're looking for a game that is just a casual game to enjoy with friends, go through the story, do a bit of rating and endgame content, because I have done some rating and endgame content, to be honest, it's been pretty fun. Now, I do foresee there being an issue in the future with people kind of like gear gating people out of content if they don't have certain tiers. While everyone is at the same point very early on, there's not much of a gear gate for most content, like unless you just legitimately shouldn't be doing it. I think there's like one raid where you want very specific gear for, and everything else is just kind of like jump in with what they give you and kind of go with it. But I can foresee that being an issue in the future, but outside of that, really, like, it should be perfectly fine. But again, back to my original point, but if you're looking for a game just to go through, have a good time, kill some time while you're waiting for new stuff to come around, like we are over in the PS2 community at NGS. I know tons of people are playing different games. I'm playing other stuff as well. Soulworker is a pretty fun experience. It's fun to play with friends. Again, the combat is super, super dope in my opinion. The story is super awesome. There are, some growing pains. The client's a bit weird sometimes. There have been some pretty annoying bugs in the game that I'm surprised even existed in the first place. Just certain situations where bosses just flat out lose animations and telegraphs of super big attacks that just one-shot you. So those have been kind of frustrating, but once you kind of get the knack for it, it's not too terribly bad. It's not completely unplayable. You just learn how to not push bosses into that state and screw everything up for yourself. Now, I will say, however, on a competitive side, because they do have leaderboards for completing certain missions under a certain time frame, on the competitive side, that's where you're going to find a bit more of your pay to win annoyances or your whales, so on and so forth. If you're curious, like, what's a whale? It's someone who basically just spends a ton of money on a video game. People tend to use the term incorrectly consistently, well, not incorrectly, but they use it over exaggeratively. But it's someone who just spends an exorbitant amount of money on a game itself, like just lots and lots of amounts. Like you're looking at people spending upwards of $200, $300, $400, $500 on a game. Like it's really not that big of a deal to them, which again, the value of money depends on the individual. So that's neither here nor there, but that is kind of the reality of the situation we're looking at. When we're talking about the high end, super competitive, you want the top times, that's where your whales are going to have an advantage. So there are some systems in the game that are a bit time gated. Not necessarily gate you out of being able to get a hold of it without paying money, but you only get so much of it a day. These things called Akasha cards. And these Akasha cards are super cool because they add really cool effects and have really cool things that they do in the game. However, some of these are pretty close to mandatory with how strong they actually are. And because of that, you're able to purchase packs of getting extra Akasha cards, meaning you have more rolls than the average player would have to get those better cards. Now, granted, it's still RNG, meaning you can't absolutely just pay to get the exact card you want, but there is a bit of a pity system involved. So if you put enough money in, you will eventually get what you need. That is part of the process as well. So from perspective of being super, super high end, absolute best players in the game, you're probably going to spend some money, unlike PSO2 where you really just don't. There are a lot of other games where you don't have to spend any money whatsoever and you can be cream of the crop. Absolute best players in the game have access to everything you need. Soulworker, at least early on, that's not going to be the case. Unfortunately, the whales are going to have that advantage in that situation itself. Now, that might be a deal breaker for you, but maybe you're not someone who cares about being top 1% or anything along those lines. I know players who absolutely are that top 1% without going super hardcore on whaling. So that's just, they have to find their own niche for situations, hiding a bit of information, going about certain strats, so on and so forth. But that's just the competitive scene. That's just how it ends up going. So at the end of the day, do I recommend Soulworker? Well, if you're looking for somewhere to kill time, just have a good time and, play a fun story, basically just a time sink, then yeah, absolutely. There's tons of events going on. They're giving out so much stuff. Even the moments where you feel like it might be a little pay to win with like outfits and things like that, they hand you all of those things for free. You basically get everything that you need from the game itself while you're going through it. You get all of those things straight up for free. You don't have to worry about paying any extra money to get what you need. No one has an advantage over that situation. It's literally just that like high end situation with the Akasha cards and all of that stuff. And anything outside of that really is just going to be what the game hands you, and then of course your overall skill. But if you're looking for a game that you absolutely want to be top 1%, you're looking to compete, this is going to be your new game that you're going to go into, I would say go into it with the mindset of you're probably going to spend some money outside of just fashion. If you want to be top 1%, I would say even some of the best players that don't spend a ton of money, they do spend a little bit to get a little bit of an advantage to push themselves forward, just get that little bit more of an edge to keep themselves ahead. Now, do I think it's a good or bad thing? I think that's up to the individual. It's up to you to decide whether or not that's something that you want to go into. But for me, for what I've had for Soulworker, I think I've spent a total of about 30 bucks in the game itself, maybe a little bit more than that. No, probably close to like 50. And honestly, it's been a really good time. I didn't even spend the extra money itself. That was just, I wanted something cosmetic wise and I didn't want to wait on it, so I got it. But as far as game mechanics go, it's been a lot of fun. I've had a good time, and I probably will have it as something I play on the side every once in a while. Not, of course, not my new main game, but something I play on the side every once in a while and have a good time with. Shout out to Shichao, as well as Weeb and Desu, all friends. Weeb being my editor. Shichao, another content creator that plays a lot of PSO2 that's playing a ton of Soulworker. They've been super helpful with helping me understand the game, helping me get through some of the more difficult things, and partying up with me to teach me some of the raid content. So they're super awesome. I'll probably leave links in the video description to both Shichao and Desu's channels. And of course, like I said, you guys, Weeb stuff is always at the bottom of the videos if you guys want to keep up with him. But that's really about all I have to say. Having a good time. Probably still gonna play the game on the side, so we'll have to see how things go. But anyway, guys, as always, a like on the video is much appreciated. Absolves your half your ad block, guilt, half is absolved by subscribing. Both are completely free and they do help me out a ton. If you want to keep up with content as, oh, looks like I forgot to turn off my fridge. There's always something in the outro, man. It never fails. But if you want to keep up with content as it goes live, make sure to click on that bell icon to be notified of community posts, as well as when the videos go live, right? I don't know my own outro. This fridge thing is really messing me up. But guys, join us over on Discord or follow me over on Twitter if you want to be notified of videos via those two avenues. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and don't forget to comment. You made it all the way to the end. See you next video. Take care. Peace out.